That's the live. Hold on.
Where's it live? Hi guys, I'm Dee Franco, Renovation Diva, and my friend Michael.
Hi guys, Michael Boyd here. How are you doing?
I hope everyone's doing great. We're starting our monthly Facebook Live, so hopefully we get a lot of viewers and a lot of questions. So before we start, I do want to go ahead and do a little bit of a disclaimer. Hi Reagan, how are you? I can't wait to see you Friday, I believe, right? So confirm, make sure that we're good to go. I always do a little bit of a drawing kind of thing here. We got to educate Michael on what's going on. So we always do a little drawing, and so we do like a little one-day free coaching session. So Reagan was the one that won for last month. So if you guys,
congratulations. That's awesome.
Yes, congratulations to you. So if you guys want to join the drawing for this month, so you can get a free day of coaching with me, go ahead and like this video, share it, and in your share, tell me why you deserve to win, and then you can be entered into the drawing. So hopefully,
I'm so bad. I'm having someone else try to share it. I can't figure it out. That way I can start focusing on this.
But he pressed
Should
the
I
button.
do something special? I did press the button. I got that.
He pressed the button to start.
Should I do
the
something
live.
too? You can get me in on this. What do you want me to do for him? Maybe we'll do a live drawing with me.
Okay.
Oh, what do you want to do?
Excellent.
Yeah, that's what we could do. Totally. If you want to do a whole day of coaching someone,
I will take.
Or what do you want to offer?
I will take someone. So if you don't know, my name is Michael Boyd. I create a company, MS Home Solutions. I also have a network group called the Gulf Coast Real Estate Network Group in the Southeast. So I live in the southeast side of Houston. Prominent landlord, flipper, and wholesaler here in Houston. So I really focus on wholesaling right now. We're going to do disclaimers and other things like that today, and do's and don'ts between that and contracts. But what I could do is potentially take someone on my next lead.
I like that.
So you actually, now you won't get to talk or anything, but you could see me actually negotiate or how I do and go through a session. So because you invited me, I will do that for you.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so guys, you guys have to like and share this video and tell us why you deserve to win when you're sharing that video. Make sure you tag us, or at least me. His Facebook is Michael Boyd. So
not the bad one. Hold on. Disclaimer too. There is a couple of Michael Boyds in Houston, so the younger one. We'll just put it out there. So
the one that doesn't behave badly. Okay, so disclaimer before we go any further, okay? I am just speaking from personal experience. I'm not a coach. I'm not here to tell you anything about legal advice or anything of that sort. I'm just here to answer what I have done and what I have had success with, and just to share my story and answer as many questions as I can possibly do. And of course, I am sure you're here to do the same.
yeah, I'm only talking from experience. Anything is from experience that we've dealt with. If it comes to attorneys, tax, or anything, questions that come out, please get with a licensed attorney, tax consultant, any of that nature. We're just here to talk about our experience in real estate. So,
yeah, so without further ado, because time's ticking, and we're very hungry, so we're ready to get out of here.
Your winner said she wanted to go with Michael.
she wanted to go.
Well,
I want to go.
Well,
you're gonna have to share again, and you're gonna have to enter that drawing then, Reagan, if you want to go ahead and be entered into that drawing. So good luck to you if you do enter. So for now, you're good to go on Friday with me, and then if you win in this section, then maybe you could go with Michael. So
yeah, it will have to be dependent on when I have the lead, so it can go at any time, and we'll just have to coordinate. So
yeah,
I'll figure something out.
okay. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit about the Oz house. So it's going well. I believe we've painted. I haven't been there in a few days. It's been kind of ugly in the Houston area with all this rain, so I've been kind of just staying close to home. But I believe from the last update I got, we are completely painted all inside of the house. The flooring should be starting today or tomorrow. The stair rails are supposed to be done this week as well. So a lot of things happening. Hopefully tomorrow I will do a live video for you guys. So I think this live video will look a little bit different from the others. So thank you for following and looking and sharing your experiences with us whenever we do those lives. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about the do's and don'ts about real estate, I guess in general, investing. And we're only going to kind of talk about 2 points right now because we don't have a lot of time. We only have an hour, so we're going to try to speed through it. If you guys have any questions, let us know, and you guys can interrupt and tell me if there's a question, if we need to stop and address that question while we're talking. But the first point we want to talk about is paperwork. You know, when you are doing any kind of real estate transaction, you want to do your paperwork. Paperwork is like the most important thing you can do because one, it protects you. It clearly states what's happening. And so it minimizes the risk on everyone's end if everyone knows what they're doing. I just recently had a deal where I was literally before closing, I found out that this house was not exactly what I thought it was. And so I don't really want to get too much into the details, but literally hours before closing, I'm finding all this information out. What I did is I reached out to the previous sellers or the previous listing agents, and my seller said no, they didn't have a seller disclosure. But then I went to talk to these other, because the house had been listed a couple times already. So I went and called these people, and they're like, yeah, there was the seller's disclosure. I'm like, well, this guy's saying there isn't. And they're like, yeah, there's been the seller disclosure's been there. All the information that you're requesting was on the seller disclosure. They're not telling me. They're pushing for closing. And so, you know, I think that paperwork is very, very important. And so now, because that happened, now my plans for this house have changed. You know, now I can't do what I intentionally thought I was going to do. I have to change all of that because the paperwork wasn't there. And so now I have to protect myself when I go to sell this house. Like, I have to make sure that I disclose information that I technically don't have because I never got the seller's disclosure. He never disclosed what we already knew that happened to the house, but I can't really disclose it because he never disclosed it to me. So I'm trying to figure out how I would say that when I do disclose, like, oh, well, you know, I was told that it could have happened or it didn't happen. And so I'm kind of in that situation where, like, what to do. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to include the seller disclosure that was provided to me, and then just say, you know, you have to do your own due diligence, and this house may have had this in the past, so please check before you buy it. So
that's a lot. That's actually a pretty good tip, is to go into like MLS or basically your MLS if you're in another area, and actually look at the past listings, because a lot of times most realtors actually put their seller's disclosure. So we always look at, when we're looking, you know, from the wholesale side, we always look at past pictures, past evidence of what's happened in the market, past seller's disclosures, and we actually get that information from there too. So that's actually a really good tip.
Yeah.
Just to try to figure out other information. Actually, I'll tell you one, because we didn't have a seller's disclosure on one, and wish I would have. But one key thing is maybe actually call the city and see if there's any active permits still on it. So
yeah.
We had a house in Baytown. We just we're actually about to put it on the market, and we didn't check before. We actually bought it from a wholesaler, so this was one we actually flipped, and we bought it from a wholesaler. So there's not really a lot of disclosures, and that's the thing with wholesaling. It's as is. It's where it is. That's how you get it at such a good price. But what ended up happening is, if we just called the city, there was an active permit that we had to fix something with the sewage. It ended up costing us $3,500 that we didn't anticipate. So will we make a little money on it? But that's definitely $3,500 we can't get back, which we probably could have negotiated if we would have known just to call the city and asked if there were any open permits. That's really all you had to ask, and there was still an open permit with the water, so we never could get the water turned on until we fixed it, and then found out it was a more expensive repair. So
yeah, so many things that could happen. Yeah, for my mistake, it was like $5,000 that I had to pay, you know.
oh,
But
the good old mistakes.
yeah, they're fun. They're fun to learn from. Not fun while you're going through the experience, but fun to learn from in the end. So, yeah, I think paperwork is really, really important when you're dealing with anything in real estate. So always make sure that you have the proper paperwork. The more forms that you can include with your contracts, the better it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the more forms, you know, usually you just hope to get a foreclosure one every time, because, you know, they don't give you anything as far as disclosure, and they don't have to disclose anything. So sometimes that's the best ones to buy, but because by law they don't have to disclose anything when you sell a foreclosure. But
Exactly.
it should disclose. I mean, I can't say enough. Even on the wholesale side, you know, we disclose. We have the as is. Most of the time we don't know, and you know, you're going to deal with sellers that don't tell you the truth. Actually, I'm 100% positive you'll pretty much deal with all sellers that never tell you the truth. So it's just better to try to get as much information as you can, some other tips to go around to get those disclosures, and just do your best to disclose everything you can, especially when you come to sell, because always make sure you fill out a seller's disclosure. So
Okay, so let me see if there's any questions anyone has, or you guys want to have us continue talking about what we're doing, and
we'll just
the
continue,
points.
and
Yeah.
we'll just continue and do some other. So what we want to do, a do or a don't next? So that
Okay.
was like a do. Do we want to do a don't?
Yeah, let's do a don't.
So actually, we'll talk about this one. This goes into contracts a little bit, but it regards earnest money and option money, and it's actually something I'm dealing with right now. And what ended up happening is this seller called us, and they basically were going, we don't know what's going on. We think we've been mistreated and stuff. So I'll go out there, and you know, they disclosed to me, you know, going, says, hey, we did sign this contract. Was this? I was like, okay, well, you know, can I see the contract? And so they showed it to me, and it was like a closing for June 30th. And so it was a one-page contract. I'll tell you one thing is, I don't use one-page, two-page contracts. I'm not against them. What I will tell you is they don't protect sellers and buyers, in my opinion. You as the buyer and the other person as seller, they just don't protect. That's why Trek has a contract in the state of Texas. But what I will say is, so the one page was written well enough to where I was like, man, if they deposited any type of money, because in order for a contract to be valid, you have to give some type of compensation. You have to give some type of monetary, whether it's $1, $10. You know, you see these contracts, but you have to have something. And so it has no option money. I was like, did y'all ever receive any money from them? And they said no. And I was like, okay. So, you know, obviously it has the title company, so I wanted to check some other stuff, try to get title back, to see what this people were doing. And they didn't deposit any earnest money. So I don't know where they're getting taught that. I don't know if people are teaching that. I think that's a big don't. You have to show that you're serious about buying it. And if it ends up going to court or anything like that, you have to show that you made a commitment to them. If you put absolutely no money, whether it's option money, whether it's earnest money, whichever one you do, you know, it's a common thing that people say, oh, you have to do earnest money. You don't have to do earnest money. You can do the option money. But you have to give some type of compensation for that contract.
Even if it's just a dollar, you know?
Even if it's just $1, it's better to make it $1 and make it enforceable than the other route, because if they get with a lawyer and they, you know, this is talking from experience and what I've been taught, you know, obviously consult a real estate attorney in this regard, and some will fight against that. But in my opinion, if you don't put any type of compensation, you don't have an enforceable contract. And so, you know, if they would have just simply put some earnest money and they had no earnest money at title, what they were doing is it's like you're not putting any skin in the game. Whether it's $1, you're not putting anything in the game to say that you're going to abide by this or you're going to go through with this contract. So, you know, it's one of those things where I think it's a big don't. I see this is one that's happening right now. They did not put any type of compensation, and, you know, sellers they get upset about that. So I've had ones where I've put little compensation. I've had other ones where I've had to put a lot. And if you want to look at someone who's serious, you need to realistically have that conversation with the seller. So
Yeah, definitely. And you don't want to take advantage of the seller either. You know, you're buying this house. Obviously, you're trying to buy as quickly as possible. So to me, you know, if it calls for, then yes, you want to do a big check for earnest money or whatever. But most of the time, you're trying to close quickly. You know, that's why we're buying these houses at discounted prices, because we can move quickly. So you don't, I don't do more than $10, $15, $20 of earnest money, because, you know, you're putting earnest money every which way, you know, so you don't need to do those big amounts. It's going to sit there in title for 2-3 weeks, you know, and so let's just go ahead and do a little bit, but we know we're serious, we know we're doing something, and that, like you said, just hardens that contract. It's just like, okay, you're for real, we're for real, we're gonna close. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as you put something in there to make sure that you're serious.
it's the same thing as an assignment contract on the wholesale. Like, we're going to ask for money because we want to make sure you're serious. So that's the whole purpose.
Yep.
So let's see, what other do's and don'ts? I mean, I actually thought of, let's see, what else you got? Any other questions? Is there any questions or anything that people would like to see?
What are they saying? Let's see. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Oh, hi, Andrea. I haven't seen you in a while.
Right?
I know. I did. How are you doing? Let's see.
And
She just said the hola. She didn't even speak in English for me.
you understand hola?
That's about it. So.
What do we got there?
Oh, is RG on? I see her watching.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Okay, so go ahead. What,
So let's see another
a
do's
do.
and don'ts. Let's see.
Something that's going on now.
Going on now. Man, there was something with contracts. As I was talking, I was discussing it.
I'll let you think about
Oh, okay. So obviously when you do, so here's a big kind of do and slash don't. When you put option money and stuff like that. So this is actually filling out contracts correctly. This goes back to the paperwork and stuff, is that, so a lot of times with option and earnest money, if you actually read it when you execute the contract, I can't tell you how many times I don't see execution on the contract. Like, you need to fill out when it's actually been executed. Then the next step is understand that there's points, like if you use a track or something, there's points in that contract that are reasonable compared to track that you have to do. So you have to deposit earnest money by 3 days. I don't think it's business days. I think it's actually 3 days.
Period. 'Cause
Period.
Even if you were to do it on a Friday.
You should be deposited by Monday.
Right.
So
Monday's the third day. So that I don't think that's why they say it doesn't count.
Do I have a truck contract right here?
That is, it's not like business days, because even if you were, like I said, to do it on a Friday, you can still deposit on Monday. And
Yeah,
you're
so it's not
within-
business. So it's
No.
within 3 days. And then the other part is the option, is you have 3 days to give the option. So, you know, a lot of people
If you put an amount there, though.
if you put an amount, that's
Yeah,
correct.
if there's no amount set on any of those sections of the contract, then really that's void. But if you are going to put even $1 on those areas, you have 3 days, not business days, to deposit that money with the title company. And if it's option money, to give it to the seller within those 3 days. Otherwise, that contract is voided. It means nothing.
The seller can decide to void it.
Yeah.
So you could be like, oh, but well, I got it on the 4th day. Well, if that seller knows a realtor or somehow contacts someone else in that time, like, it amazes me that people think they're the only people that they call. Look, it's a very competitive market. When you have someone who's ready to go, you need to make sure you lock them in contract. You need to do it correctly, because that's kind of the same thing. They haven't done some steps correctly, and so it becomes a thing. I just saw a question come through, so we got one. But you have to do it correctly, or else, you know, honestly, more experienced people are going to walk in and tell them. And quite frankly, the other contract, they'll never get them to sign again. I have all the trust in the world from the seller now, because I've said this and that and what's going on, and like, they're never going to go with them. So you lose all credibility if you don't do it correctly, or you don't just, as we said, disclose or do all this stuff up front. You're going to lose to someone who's more reputable and actually make sure they discuss this with people. So,
and you want to be honest and translucent when you're talking to a seller. You don't want to just say what they want to hear because you want them to sign on the dotted line. You want them to trust you. You want them to know that what you're telling them is the truth, and that you are going to follow through with what you're telling them. So to me, I think it's just about honesty and transparency as well. You know, of course, doing it right and filling out the right paperwork doesn't hurt either.
and so if you use a Trek, by the way, they have page 9 or 10. I think page 9 is the broker. Page 10, there's receipts there that show the option. So like, a lot of times when I have it, I have a checkbook or something else when I'm out there, and I make sure the seller signs that I have an option. It's just another proof they've signed that. And then the title company, you go deposit that, they should send you back a proof for the earnest money. So that's how that all make sure that you happen that way, and make sure that you do your contracts correctly, because it's very important, especially when a seller comes and starts saying, well, you don't have a valid contract. Well, don't think it doesn't happen. They're going to get another offer. I can't tell you how many times I've had people offer higher than me, but we're in a valid contract, so I have to enforce that.
Yeah, or they'll say, you know, like, it's a fully executed contract. Well, no, it's not, because until the seller signs for the option money, the title company writes in their receipt, and then you execute it at that very top, that, or not very top, it's about middle of the page, where you execute it like on this day or whatever. That is a fully executed contract.
Yeah, you have the time to get it there, but understand that you have to have everything in thing to have a fully assigned contract. And here's the thing with option: if you don't get it in time, you lose your option. So if you put a big earnest money and then you can't sell it, or you can't do something, you probably just lost your earnest money, unless you're really good at talking.
You're way out of that.
All right, so.
Okay, so do we have a question?
Yep. Andrea says, what are your thoughts on having a real estate license while trying to wholesale? Pros and cons.
Okay, so do you want to go first?
So I will tell you,
Well, repeat the question, because I think Jessica was talking a little bit low.
So the question was, I think
what was
basically
it?
it was real estate and having.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on wholesaling if you have a real estate license?
Yes.
The pros and cons. So it actually goes back to our first thing: is disclose. As long as you're fully disclosing everything, and you're not trying to harm that seller in any way or thing. Here's what I would say if you're a realtor. In my opinion, I'm inactive now, so I'm no longer licensed. That was for a different reason. It's not because I can't wholesale with a license. That's not why I did it. What I would say is that when I was actually wholesaling, I was under a licensed brokerage that actually basically teaches how to wholesale and are very investor friendly. What I would say is, when you actually do comps, just from a realtor's perspective to protect yourself, you should probably send them comps and really be truthful about what the ARV. You should be truthful in general
Yes.
about ARV, because I tell people all the time, like, yeah, I think your house is worth this if you did this, 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 and this. It just helps me to get down. But we're going to come in here and do this, this, and this, and this is how we're going to get the ARV. So you should be truthful with your ARV. You can actually email comps. And so if you actually emailed the comps to the seller, you have that as proof in order to protect your license, that you're not trying to say, well, they told me the house was worth this and they were trying to get it under. Another thing to do is obviously you need to disclose your IABS, which simply with the email, which already should be on your email, your information about brokerage services. I would even probably have copies and give it to them when you go to the appointment. That way there's no discussion that you're not a realtor. So from a pros, I think actually it makes you more legitimate, in my opinion. It's a pro based off like, hey, I'm a licensed realtor. I'm going to tell you what the active comps are. This is what we can do. You understand that I do this for a living and I intend to make a profit. When you say that, you've disclosed everything. So this is me buying it. Now from the wholesale side, so I think that's kind of the pros. Now the cons is obviously you have to, I disclose ARV anyways. I think they're going to go talk to a realtor. I think it's kind of foolish for a wholesaler to think that they're not talking to someone else, or they don't have a friend that's a realtor that's telling them a higher number. So I'm upfront about it. I just think that's the way to be. But from a realtor side, the cons for wholesaling, if you don't know state regulation or keep up, there was something with that just changed with the property code, Texas occupation codes, of how you have to market it and things like that. If you don't keep up to date on that, you are licensed and with ethics, and so there's a lot of other rules and guidelines you have to go. If you don't have a broker that's on board with you wholesaling, there's too many out there that you can't find. But if they don't know wholesaling or can't give you the proper forms or disclosures and don't tell you how to do it, I think that's a con. There's not a lot of brokers out there that would, or they just don't know enough about it. So that's why I think it's a con sometimes to maybe be
a
realtor,
wholesaler.
Yeah.
I agree that you should look for a broker that is wholesaling,
or has wholesaled in the past.
or that has wholesaled, or is okay with you wholesaling, or is educated about wholesaling, because not a lot of realtors are educated on that subject. I mean, if you go to a traditional, it's probably someone that's been in it for a while. Most likely, they're the ones that are like, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. And for me, when I do a contract, I always put on there, we're buying this property with the intent to profit. I always put it. Now they have a section on the first page where you can disclose you're an agent.
Oh, yeah.
That you disclose you're an agent, but I say, hey, I'm a licensed real estate agent in the state of Texas with the intent to profit from this deal.
I like that. I've never even heard that. That's really good.
That's what I write on my contract. I put my name, Deanna Franco, is a licensed realtor in the state of Texas with the intent to profit on this deal. So
I think if you do that, it's pretty
clear. I think anyone can understand that whole sentence, and so no one is going to say, well, she didn't say, or she didn't tell me, or I didn't know. I mean, it was very clear on what we were doing here.
So I know Dee does a lot more flipping, so she probably has her. So obviously the wholesaling is going to have indoor signs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I do that too.
Well,
even though I keep them. If I write my own contract, I always leave it on there just because you never know. I mean, somebody could offer you, 20, 30 grand, and you're like, okay, well, do I make
30 grand real quick and no headaches of dealing with the flip?
Right. I mean, leave your options open. So.
Well, here's the other thing about it too. If you in profit, we're in the business of buying and selling real estate, period. Whether we sell it to someone else and they give you the same price, I can't tell you. I don't think, as long as we've negotiated a price and it's there and we got to them, they didn't care if we were wholesaling or they didn't care. They really don't.
I don't.
Once you negotiate to a price and they agree to it, they don't care whether you wholesale. They know that. And they know they sell at a discount. They know you're going to make profit. So other than that, with the disclosing and stuff, there's some good pros. It's all how you do it. Like, I'm inactive, so if I was going up against someone who's a realtor, I'd be like, oh, well, they're not doing this, and but then you have the opposite side. I think the realtors have the stronger position to be able to get people who are inactive, in my opinion. Just because you can say, well, I've done 180 hours, I've done all these classes, I have a brokerage, this is what it's doing, I'm showing you true comps. I think that's more legitimate than some wholesaler who gives a 1 or 2 page contract.
Yeah. Well, I actually think there's a lot more pros than cons. The only con I would think is only because you didn't disclose and you can't find a broker, which I'm sure you can find a broker, that
very limited
is okay with you wholesaling. But other than that, I think wholesaling and being an agent is no problem at all. It's just disclose. Do your paperwork. Again, we're talking about that topic. Make sure you have the right paperwork and make sure that you explain it clearly in plain English so there's no confusion about what you are doing.
And I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard some rumors and stuff through legislation. It might take a while, but I wouldn't be surprised someday if you have to be licensed to do it. I would not be surprised, just because I've seen some legislation come down. So, and there's some big firms now, other big wholesale firms that are only hiring agents. So, I mean, I don't think there's any.
It's moving towards.
It's moving towards that,
yeah,
for sure.
I do think so too, because it's just so many people are wanting to get into real estate now that, it's just. I mean, just from when I first started, like a minute ago, because I have not been doing this for a long time. I mean, 6 years, compared to some of the people that have been doing it for a long time, is nothing.
So I saw her asking other questions
Yeah,
as she was going on. Andrea was like asking more questions. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what other stuff did she add? So we keep on the same topic,
yes.
and then we'll go to
Okay.
another question.
First one.
She asked, do you give the IABS to the sellers as a realtor or a wholesaler?
Only
As
as
a
a realtor.
realtor.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're licensed. I don't have to give an IABS as a wholesaler.
No,
I'm not
yeah.
licensed.
Yeah,
Okay.
as a realtor, you have to introduce yourself
Self.
as a realtor and say, I am a licensed realtor in the state of Texas, but I am not here as a realtor.
I'm not here to represent you.
Yeah, I'm not here to represent you. I'm not here to represent myself. I am just here as a buyer, period. But you do have to say you're a realtor before you say anything else. You say, I am a realtor in the state of Texas, licensed
Okay.
to
You gotta go
work.
back to
For clarification, she says, I meant to say when you're doing both.
You don't have to disclose your wholesaling, because that's why the indoor signs. You're welcome to buy and sell. If you're going,
Yeah, but for
I
me,
don't know.
I always disclosed. Whenever I did a wholesale, I would always, and maybe this is the way you disclose. You don't want to just say, hey, I'm going to go and sell your property for more. That may not fly so well. But
usually doesn't. Then they want to cut.
yeah, then they're like, well, I'll do it myself. And then you say, well, you don't have the same resources I do. But what I would say is like something of the effect, I can't remember exactly the words I used to use, but it's all in the wording. I used to say like, well, I'm gonna partner up with someone. They're the ones that have the funding, so I'm the one that's looking for the deals. Or, I'm gonna step away. They're gonna buy my interest because I have too many deals going on, so they're gonna go ahead and follow through with the process, and I'm just gonna stay right here.
I like the second one better. I think the first one is more for wholesalers with partners, when you start saying partners. But if you say, look, I have, they're going to step in on my interest, all the stuff is going to stay the same, you're still getting paid the same amount of money, they're still going to close, I think that would go better for realtors.
Yeah,
It's all in the wording.
it's all in the wording.
Just never say wholesale. Ever.
Yeah,
It's
Yes.
just a bad term. And then they're going to go look on it, they're going to go do Google, and they're going to go wholesaling, and then they're going to see all the negative
What? Google?
Oh, I know, Google, and they're going to see all the negative reviews. It's just, You just have to be more professional about it. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing is you have to be able to close. If you don't offer on something you can't close on, or if you're offering that you can't close on, you better say that you're wholesaling. Well, I shouldn't say wholesaling. You better say you're partnering or looking to market. And this is how, we've been in business for a long time and I have this thing and I think I can get this price for you. So
Exactly. Again, we're going back to disclosing. You have to say what is it that you're doing. So for me, when I used to wholesale, that's what I would always say. Hey, I'm partnering up with someone. They're going to take it from here. Or, I have too many deals going on. I'm just going to go ahead and get my part of the interest in this property right now, and they're going to follow through with the rest of it. So I always said something like that. And to me, disclosing, again, being transparent, the moment that you meet these people is key. So it's just about how you say it, the words you use, and the confidence you use when you use those words.
it's all about confidence.
What's the
Okay.
And no, I don't disclose that I'm inactive. They can look that up online.
Yeah.
I'm
Pretty
not
simple.
licensed. I don't act as a realtor. I don't list. I don't represent anybody, so I don't have to disclose that anymore, as what I've been told. And so, no, I don't disclose that because I'm not an active realtor anymore. I've let my license inactive. So.
Okay. She also asked, as a wholesaler, how do you disclose you're not really going to buy it?
I think that we.
I think we just
yeah,
covered that.
yeah.
That's what we just covered.
Yeah, I
What's
think
the-
we just answered
Okay.
that question.
So
So,
then, I guess
We
it's
got, no, one more question
One
from
more
Jose.
That's what I
He
was
says,
gonna
what happened if the seller signs 2 contracts?
Woo. So
look.
that's what I'm doing right now. We
Look.
just talked about that. So here's the thing with 2 contracts. Most of the time they won't tell you. Period. And this business is very small. What I would say to that is that once you find out that there's been 2 contracts signed, probably approach the other wholesaler if you can, if they're reasonable, and approach and see, in my opinion, who has the first executed contract. Whoever has the first executed contract, technically, as long as they abide by the option money and the earnest money that we already talked about, as long as they have, whoever has the first execute, the other person should technically bow out. That's what's reasonable.
But that is not always the case.
That's not always the case because people want a thing, but as a respectable wholesaler, I can tell you, I know that for the company I'm with and out there and what I do, I'll see who has ever the first executed contract. Now, if they act a little bit different to me, it could be a different story. Because then we go into all the contracts. Then I'm going to see, okay, do you have a valid one?
You're gonna poke
I'm going to start
holes.
poking holes
Yeah.
in their contract, and once I figure out that it's invalid, then I'm not going to care, or if the rapport with the thing. But,
Yeah, I think it would just be that.
it'd
Who's
be
first?
that, and who's first, and just understand, and you go, okay, well, seller, this is what happens. You have to wait till this, and hopefully they close by this, and then I'll step in. You can have that if you have really good rapport.
If you were like the second contract.
If you were the second contract.
Yeah, let's say if, for example, I went and I signed the contract with them, and then he goes and signed the contract, and then we figure out that I went first, and so he's okay. He's like, you know what? She
Dee
went
does
first.
everything correctly. I know she does everything by the book.
You better
so I
believe
better
it.
back it out, and I just don't want to fight with her.
Back
so
down.
I'll back out, and then I know she's not going to close, and then I'll come in right afterwards.
Because
So-
I'm going on vacation, so I'm like, oh dang it, I can't close
Close.
by the time that the
Then she'll
seller
try to
wants-
assign it to me, and then I'll do something like that. No, but
Give me 20 grand.
I would just put it back.
Have my contract.
If I can make 10, we might have a deal. So, but I would probably put a backup offer in at that time. On the second. Now, here's the other part about that though. Technically, you have to go by memorandums. So this is where memorandums become an issue, and it's becoming an issue because
It
even though it's
is.
executed, is that if that second contract filed a memorandum. Now this is where I would like to really, I shouldn't talk about this because this is like a legal thing.
That he's going through right now.
Very legal, and talk to an attorney, but I know from question when you actually record the first recording, it's kind of like when you record a deed. Like say someone sold 2 deeds. Now that's even worse when they sell 2 houses and it's free and clear and they sell 2 deeds. Well, whoever records the first deed first actually has the right to that property, even if the other one was signed
First.
So
if the second one that was recorded was signed first, but it wasn't recorded, it's like, oh, I'll get to it later.
they've lost their
And
interest.
then 2 years later, this person comes and buys that house again, even though it's not it, and they go record it. Guess what? Even though you've already bought it and paid for it and you have the deed, it's not recorded. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could, I guess, get into a lot of legal discussions and spend a lot of money to get that property back, per se. That could happen.
Well, I'd be the seller. I'd be more upset about because they probably took 2 things and going after them. But the other thing is when they file a memorandum, because most likely it's going to come back on title. And so if that second or first person, if the second person who, let's say the second person wasn't so nice, I would say, and wants to back out and understands that the first executing contract and all sellers are liars. Let's say he puts a memorandum of contract and doesn't want to back out. Well, now he's cloud title. The fact of the matter is, he shouldn't be able to, or her, or whoever it is. But at the same time, I probably would negotiate with them and probably just give them a cut, because at the end of the day, it's too hard to go through a legal battle to get that thing, and you're not doing the best thing for the seller. So,
Right.
not to say it's right by any means, and not to say it's thing, but unfortunately, the
That's
due
what you have
process
to do.
due process does not take. Due process takes a long time to actually go through a legal battle, and especially for a civil matter. I mean, you're looking at 6 months to a year before a court date typically, just to go through. So, can a seller wait that time? Are they going to lose it to foreclosure? This is all the other stuff you have to think about that sometimes you just have to commit to say, okay, let's just get this deal done.
Yep. And just bite the bullet and pay up some money.
And then blast that person on Facebook.
And I don't know about
No,
that.
I don't know about that, but
no, don't
they'll
do
be
that.
they'll be in that circle
No,
that you don't
don't
trust.
don't do that.
So
Let's
But
all
this-
be nice.
it is a small group of people, so
Eventually it'll
eventually it'll all come out.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have any more questions?
I think you already kind of answered the last one. It was from Andre, and she asked if it was like clouding title. So I think we had already
Oh.
covered that.
Oh, the memorandum, yeah, clouded title.
So, okay, well, does anybody have any other questions or anything that we didn't answer? If not, then, we're going to go ahead and start saying our little goodbyes. Make sure that if you guys want to enter the drawing, for the ones that weren't listening in the beginning, like this video, share it, and if you share it, say why you deserve to win, and you could win a whole day of spending the day with me and going out and doing real estate stuff. And then Michael has also offered something, so he's going to...
I will actually have one of my lead appointments. Now, you won't be able to talk, but you'll actually get to see me, how I interact with the lead. We could even maybe meet up and I can show you how I actually evaluate a deal before I go there. And then basically, go through the process and see an appointment and see what I actually do. So you get to see how I interact with the seller, what type of stuff, maybe even if I negotiate. You'll see some negotiation there, so you'll get to see what I actually do, and you can ask questions, and I'll be available for that. So
Yeah. So he
this
does-
isn't like This isn't like, oh, we can do this Friday at 3 p.m.
Yeah,
This
I
is
was
like
about to say that.
it is contingent on when the seller can do it. I'll work with you. I'm not going to say it has to be this week. Like, I'll work around your time. Typically I go in the afternoon or morning. Sometimes I have evening appointments, but you'll just tag along with me basically as someone, and we'll discuss that before we enter. So I can do that though.
And for me, you would get like an appointment. We just figure out what day works for both of us, and then we'll do it that one day. So like, share, and comment why you deserve it.
We have more questions.
Yeah.
Right before we say
Sean-
bye.
Sean says, do you sign
Memorandum.
Memorandum.
for each contract?
You should sign a memorandum for each contract that you do. It's just a little extra protection, and I mean, who doesn't want low risk, right? So
Yeah, remember, I mean, it costs, I think, $20 to do, you can do it e-sign.
Record it, yeah.
E-record it now for Harris. And so for $20 to protect your interests, it's very important. I think it's definitely a good quality for any type of wholesaler to do it. The other thing I would say is that the only bad part about that is sometimes you forget to undo it. And if like you cancel a contract or something like that, and then they come back to you, like that can be embarrassing. But it can be taken care of. Just make sure you remember it has to be notarized.
yes.
So anything recorded has to be notarized.
So if you, what I do is like whenever I do something like that, I do it, and whenever I turn in my contract to the title company, I just have them do it for me while I'm there, because it's just kind of like one stop for me.
Yeah. It's just a one-page or two-page
Yeah.
document. It's not something that's just saying I have interest on this property.
Yeah, so I just take the contract, I take the memorandum, and they notarize it while I'm there, dropping everything off, dropping off earnest money, dropping off option money, dropping off the contract, and dropping off the memorandum. So all in one stop, and they just notarize it, they e-file it for me, and I don't have to worry about it. So that's what I do. That's how I file it.
Armand asks, can a wholesaler mark a realtor's listing?
What?
Market.
Market a realtor's listing.
Yeah.
I guess they do.
So, well, okay.
Like if they, yeah. Yes.
I will tell
Go
you.
ahead.
So this is what I will tell you regarding a realtor's listing. Yes, you can, because I know someone actively who does it. Because all of his is listing. He was actually at my Gulf Coast group and spoke this last month, so he's probably more of an expert on it. He does have a license. He's actually a broker, and he does market MLS deals, but he has the actual contract with the seller. Now,
Yes.
everything
so
is
don't
gonna-
market something you don't have a contract for.
well, here's the other thing, though. A person is allowed to assign interest for their interest in the property. So you could be only talking to the buyer. So while I'll technically think this is correct, this is something that gets the lawyer, and I'll talk from my experience. But if you have the contract with the buyer and he's assigned his interest over to you, you have that contract. You know, he has a contract with the seller. He's assigned his interest over. As long as he doesn't say that you can't assign that, you're allowed to assign that interest as well, because now you have an assigned interest. Now, what gets clouded is depending on with your interests. Now, there's disclosures. If you haven't read or something as far as wholesaling, you better be disclosing that you have you're supposed to disclose you have an equitable interest or assigned interest per occupations code. That did change, and that is a law in effect. They haven't come down on it yet, but I can tell you, I see a lot of wholesalers who don't disclose that, and I don't know how. If you're on Facebook, you better start disclosing it. I don't know how people are not doing that either on Facebook when they're sharing properties, because that's a marketing. You're marketing a property for sale. So I would say yes, you can do it, but it is definitely a murky kind of situation. It's better to tell the seller's agent if you can and what you're doing, but not everything's a perfect world. So I say yes, as long as you have a contract. Kind of goes back to the contracts. As long as you have a fully executed contract that you have it and you're allowed to assign your interest to, then I will say yes, it can be done. But it's a very murky situation.
And again, if you disclose it, there shouldn't be any issues. If you tell the seller, if you tell the seller's agent, you know, what you're wanting to do with this or what your exit strategy with this deal is, there shouldn't be any problems. The problem comes when people want to do stuff under the table and don't do proper paperwork, don't disclose properly. That is when you get into problems. So I think, again, we go back to proper paperwork and disclosing. Be transparent. Be honest about what you're trying to do and what your exit strategy is. And you shouldn't come with I mean, you're always going to get into issues if you're in any kind of business, and real estate is all about paperwork. So if you don't do something right, because we're all human, chances are you are going to get into some kind of issue, but you minimize the risks when you do it properly.
When you just minimize the risk properly, and if people know about it, they're more open about it. I'm not saying there's just sometimes where it will get murky and stuff like that, and you hope the buyer is communicating and stuff like that. That situation gets very murky, but do I think technically, legally, it can be done? Yes, as long as you have the valid paperwork. So.
Agreed. Okay, so are we done?
That's it.
Okay, those are all the questions we have today.
All right, awesome.
I guess I hope you guys enjoyed our little chat here. I hope we were informative. Again, remember, these are just our personal experiences. We're not trying to give you legal advice or anything of that sort. So.
Hey, Eddie, how are you? See, I get people too who.
Oh, so you're gonna say hi to Michael, but you're not gonna say hi to me? Okay, I see how this is. Well,
maybe I get out more, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, you have lately. I haven't been anywhere lately. I'm gonna start going to those events too, so people say hi to me too. What is he saying? You're closer.
I have no. Can you not read? Are we blind
I
over
can't see. It's too far.
Oh, I can't. I'm not gonna say that. We're good.
What?
No, he said something nice.
You better say something nice. Anyway, okay, so we won't take much more of your time, guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending time with us and hearing us talk about our experiences. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Good luck to those that are going to take that opportunity of the drawing that we're offering. And thank you for coming to mi casa.
I know.
And
I wish it was somewhere else. She moved on me. I didn't know that. So had to come a little bit further, but that's okay. Well, I appreciate Dee having me out. And it was awesome. And
tell them about your event. What
okay,
is it?
yeah. So I actually do on the southeast side in Pasadena, the Gulf Coast Real Estate Network Group. Also a Pasadena Meetup. You can look it up on meetup.com. You can look it on Facebook. We will have our event Thursday, the third Thursday of this month. And from here on out, we do it the third Thursday every month. This month will be October 18th. I believe we are speaking on design between flips and rentals and what to do. So it should be a really good turnout. It will start at 7 p.m. and we'll be there till 10 and stuff. So there is light hors d'oeuvres served. So that'll be good. Some food, but obviously it's not a full meal, so get something before. But we always deliver great content, bring a lot of passion content, and teach people more about real estate.
That's right. I love his meetings. So go ahead and go if you want to learn more. Lots of good content. Lots of good people going over there. So I hope to see you guys there soon.
Bo says hello.
Hello, how are you? Finally somebody said hi to me.
He said even, hey, family. See?
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey, family.
look. No one is saying hi to poor little D.
They were on the beginning. They've already said their eyes.
They said their eyes. You missed it
I
all.
guess it's time to go.
All right, guys.
Hang up.
He says, where? I live in Pasadena.
Oh.
So it is at the Hampton Inn and Suites, Pasadena. So it's right off 45, 45 in Beltway, right in southeast Pasadena. Hampton Inn and Suites, Pasadena. Look us up on Meetup Facebook. Sorry, I guess I'm taking D. She's about to like.
Hey, Jose said hi, D.
Yeah.
You got
It's
your
too late
wish.
now.
It's too late. Now.
It's too late now, Jose.
Yeah.
Look, you already
You
said
had
hello.
more laughs just from this interaction. See, usually it's just you, so you should be thankful.
Yes,
Grateful.
I am.
I probably would never get invited again.
Bo says hello.
Go fixed it. Okay.
Okay, fixed it. Okay.
Yeah.
He said hello, Rediva.
There you go.
Anyway, okay. Well,
So-
guys, we're gonna go eat because we're all hungry.
Yes.
Hopefully our food is here.
It
Where's
should be.
Stacy?
I don't know.
I don't know. She went.
It was great being on. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Dee, for having us. Y'all should really pay attention to Dee. She knows what she's talking about. She's amazing. So,
You are amazing too. Thank you for coming all this way. Okay, well, you can push the little finish button.
I got
over
it.
there.
Oh, that
Yeah.
way.
Bye,
Later, guys.
They gotta push it again.
You don't know.
Oh, I don't know.